Good morning, everyone. So we're going back to the desertic areas with preliminary results on the 2023 field season of the Shaqadud Archaeological Project that Ladislav presented yesterday, but today with a focus on Stone Age and Pleistocene Stone Age occupation. First, a little bit of background. So we are in northeastern Africa. The main geographical feature is, of course, the River Nile, which is the largest river on Earth and the second largest basin, which extends from eastern Africa in the Lake Victoria region up to the Mediterranean Sea, and it forms nowadays like a natural way towards the only land bridge between Africa and Eurasia via the Sinai Peninsula. So as such, that region is, especially for Pleistocene archaeology, is a privileged region to look at out of Africa dispersals, and in particular the earliest out of Africa dispersals for the earlier period by Homo erectus, but also Homo sapiens, out of and of course back into Africa. And this has influenced the research history in that area with a focus and emphasis on links or absence of links with Eurasian prehistory, as well as a relatively less emphasis of the role of the region in the wider African context. It also led to a lack of comparability of data, especially with other African regions. For example, for a long time we were talking about Middle Paleolithic, Upper Paleolithic in northeastern Africa, while in other regions of Africa it's the Stone Age terminology. It's slowly changing, but it's also not helped by the fact that we have very few stratified and well-dated sites in this region. And here, this is a map, it's a work in progress, but showing the main areas with Pleistocene Stone Age sites. And as you can see, it's a product of the history of research. Most of them are located in the Nile Valley, with those big dots here around the Aswan region, as well as in the western deserts, mostly in the oasis. So the desert remains lesser investigated area. And when we are interested in the human-environment interaction, then, as you can see, northeastern Africa is a very contrasted environment, with the Nile Valley representing only a narrow green strip, and we are immediately after in the desert. And if the deserts remain unexplored or little explored, then we miss a whole part of the story of the human-environment interactions within northeastern Africa. So what Ladislav also presented yesterday for the Holocene, it's also true, even more maybe for the Pleistocene, that we have little information on this east-west human-environment interaction in the area. So the Shaqadud Archaeological Project is located in central Sudan, around 50 kilometers east of the Nile, here, and as you can see, this is the Jebel Shaqadud. So it's close, relatively close to the Nile, but still inland. Here I'm going to go quickly because it's been presented yesterday, but the most known archaeology from that area is the Holocene archaeology, with the new data showing that Shaqadud had the earliest dates for the Holocene reoccupation of the Sahel environment in that area, with little to no links with what's happening in the Nile Valley so far. There was not any record of Pleistocene Stone Age archaeology up until recently, so that's why I joined the project last year to investigate a little bit more the Pleistocene Stone Age archaeology. A note on the general landscape is that what I found particularly striking is that this area has a lot of geofacts, which is true for all usually semi-desertic or desertic surface, but particularly in Shaqadud. Here is an example of this kind of geofacts that are relatively obvious in that case. But sometimes it is a little bit more tricky. And here is an example of a sandstone outcrop, which is naturally fragmented, and with the outer layer being peeled off the block, forming like a platform with a bulb. And if it's weathered, then it becomes really, really difficult to distinguish between real artifacts and what's been naturally broken. So it has to be taken into account, and it's located right by an area with probable flakes, but with this in mind, then we couldn't decide if it was a real Stone Age location. It's also an area, as we've seen yesterday, that is intensively occupied during the Holocene, and the sandstone resources as well to make essentially groundstone. And here, the only one of the ways to distinguish between Holocene and Pleistocene exploitation is to look at the patina of the artifact and the sandstone. And here is an example of sandstone exploitation, which is little patinated, and then so probable Holocene linked to the Holocene occupation. So this is a map of Shaqadud with the two main areas that I surveyed here, which is located next to the main Holocene occupation, where the red triangles are Pleistocene Stone Age artifacts, but which were found mostly in isolated forms in a very Holocene landscape, if I may say. So then I moved to survey around the Shaqadud Canyon, which is where the earliest Holocene occupation has been found, which has a slightly different landscape as well, and where there were more evidence for Pleistocene Stone Age occupation. So here is a close-up view of the Shaqadud Canyon, which starts around here and then goes down towards the plain, with several Stone Age locations. And the first one that was found was this one here. So keeping in mind that at that time of the survey, I was like, okay, there are many geofacts, I need to be very careful, but I just couldn't ignore that one, which was lying isolated here on the bedrock, just on the side of the canyon bed. So this is a beautiful core in quartzite, very weathered, with characteristics that allow it to get close to Levallois preferential core, with the preparation of the platform, preparation of convexities, both of the lower surface and upper surface. But as you can see, it's very weathered, so I look forward to try the new algorithm that was just presented. Yes. So with the removal of the large flakes. So it gave me a little bit more hope to find more sites, more locations of Pleistocene Stone Age, especially since at the top of the plateau, so a bit higher up, around 300 meters from the first core, another core was found, also lying on the surface in a relatively isolated context, but with a similar technology, except that we are now the Levallois recurrent core, centripetal. And then the other location with Stone Age artifact is located also on top, above the canyon, on this surface here. So we are on a small hill with a slope that is gently sloping towards the canyon, and here on top of Holocene playa here. So you can see the hill, the trench, 30-meter trench that I did with the playa on top. So I hope it's going to work. I'm going to accelerate a little bit, but I want to show that, especially since I think it gives an idea. So the hill, the canyon is here, the hill with the trench, and above the hill this playa. So artifacts that were found are very weathered as well. They were found first at the bottom of the hill, and so I made a 30-meter trench and collected everything on the surface to have an idea of the density of the finds, and being very conservative in my choice of what are artifacts and what are not. So interestingly, there were only a few cores that were found of a small size, and which really do not really match with the flakes that were found associated as well, which are very large flakes, very well prepared from the platform and from the dorsal convexities as well. It's relatively thick flakes, from the Levallois production with a thick prepared platform. There were also some evidence for shaping, for façonnage, and also some research tools, which were mostly denticulated tools. A few numbers, so here from the squares of the trench from 1 to 30, where 1 is at the top and 30 at the bottom, where you can see the accumulation of artifacts towards the bottom, which would suggest that it's just fallen from the slope. Mostly plates, a few retouch tools, a few cores, but these numbers do not really match what we would expect on a workshop site. We would expect less retouched pieces, more cores, so it's probably a mixed function site, and we clearly can see relatively large artifacts. Interestingly, at the top of the hill, at the edge of the playa, were also found some artifacts that were with similar characteristics, large Levallois flakes, large denticulated tools, and the question is whether those should be associated to the same site or to the same phase of occupation. So what we can take from this, we have these characteristics that are not really known from other sites in the area. With these characteristics, large flakes, denticulated tools, it could be attributed to the end of the Acheulean or early Middle Stone Age. And what we know from that period in the region is very little, with few dated sites, some around 200,000 years ago, but usually associated with hand axes, and we don't have that for the moment at this location. So this remains a question mark of the chronocultural attribution and how it fits within the wider northeastern African context. There are, for example, in Jebel Shaqadud, which is around here, Middle Paleolithic sites with large, in the Nile Valley with large cores and denticulated tools, but then whether it fits with what we have in Shaqadud is still an ongoing process. So what we could say is that there is evidence for human occupation, probably during the late early Stone Age or early Middle Stone Age at Shaqadud. This is the first time we could say with certainty that there is Pleistocene Stone Age occupation in that area, which will probably have to be correlated with Pleistocene, with springs being active during the Pleistocene, so probably during interglacial periods, maybe MIS7, so this is also something that we will have to test, and also to continue the comparisons with materials from other regions. So thank you to the institutions and people for the support, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Alice. Any questions?
Maybe one. May I ask you, do you analyze the pieces directly in the terrain, or you can transport them to the Europe? Because I know that it's quite a usual problem in Egypt, for example. Usually you must.
So here it was both. So I studied some in the field, and then I have some here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another question?
Do you have any idea raw materials probably local, right? Or do you have any idea what transport time?
Yes, so that's also a question that we're going to have. We have raw material samples from the outcrop where the artifacts were found, so then we will be able to compare it to make sure that it's the same, it's really local raw material. Okay.
Another question? So I have a question, probably it's not necessary to ask this. Are there animal remains?
No, unfortunately not. that would have been nice.
Yes. So thank you very much, and we'll progress now to the last speaker of the session,